It all comes down to this. From hero to anti-hero, and now a villain. All that's left is Goldian's child support payments. Which doesn't exist anymore. Welcome back, Obscure Titan here with the last Tales of Misilleeka essay. This time, we take a look at the 2019 edition. This was something I have considered working on after I get the other episodes summarized in video form. Episode 1 starts with Misilleeka being born as the daughter of an angel father and dragon mother to prove herself as Crystal Celestia's hero, and befriending a princess of Sukrami who happens to be a pure genie. Episode 2 pushes Misilleeka to a darker side, and her hatred for Sakrak was fueled by Levigrak's death and succeeded in 2 insurrections, becoming Nexus Netherworld's leader. Episode 3 focuses on Misilleeka's allies, each having a story arc with their own set of challenges. Much like the other episodes except for Episode 2, this has time skips. Unlike the others, however, the chapters are out of order. It begins with Chapter 1, then Chapter 2 is set close to Disgaea 5's time frame, then scales back to Chapter 3, then back further into Chapter 4, speeds all the way to Chapter 5, and then proceeding to Chapter 6. All the chapters' acts will be fused into one except for Chapter 2. It tends to go back and forth in pacing, however, I will be summarizing the chapters chronologically. We'll start with Misilleeka's confrontation with Megacon, then that with Vizon at Spherus Magna, the alliance with the Genie Realm, her affairs with Goldion and reunion with Void Dark, sort of, her first time meeting with young Etna, and ending it with Misilleeka's death in 1475 AD. It's been 1,009 years since Misilleeka held her concert. Misilleeka and Professor Zoldak are next to the portal in front of them. It's been pointed out that the Doctor has been busy building it and hopes that they can use it to travel anywhere. The others, such as Zolkar, Jigra, Diatra, and Sleeka, came together and prepped themselves for this perilous trip. Misilleeka hopes to find Dark Energon to go with the Nexus energy. As the portal opened, Misilleeka and her allies step through it and enter a ginormous street. One red dotted line following across as separate streets. Massive skyscrapers, about 5 to 10 times the size of human buildings. Cautious of the sounds ahead, Jigra looked around and so does Diatra. Then a massive figure appears before them. He was tall and sharp, and had a triangular torso. He was Starscream. The Decepticon threatened to inform Megacon, only to immediately change his mind into just trying to kill them himself. The battle ensues, and they all fought fiercely. Starscream fires his missiles, and Misilleeka's warriors bounce back. The Queen scratches the Decepticon's face, and he started complaining about it, screeching like a child. Professor Zoldak has a potion to finish the blow, but was disrupted by a rumbling noise from below. Scorponok intervenes and tramples the Misilleekan minions. Desperate to stop them, Misilleeka tries fighting back, but she was ultimately smacked down by Starscream. As all of her allies fell, Starscream and Scorponok stand in victory. A booming voice echoes and comes down next to where they stood. A giant mechanical dragon arrives and transforms into a massive, tall, and imposing figure. He demands Misilleeka's minions to be put into cages as they arrive to their capital, Kon Kaon. Sometime later, Misilleeka finds herself inside a cage. Blue beams of energy for bars and metallic platforms to maintain them. She sees herself and others being badly damaged. Suddenly, neo-purple lights light up and 5 figures appear before them. Soundwave, Shockwave, Starscream, Scorponok, and their leader, Megacon, Emperor of Cybertron himself. He welcomes Misilleeka's regime in his throne room, or rather to be condemned to death. Starscream scoffs at his comments, and what follows is the Emperor igniting purple flames which turn into a hammer. Slamming it onto the ground, it startled him, threatening that the next time he opens his mouth would better be eating a crystal donut. The Emperor proceeded on to commend Misilleeka for coming to his kingdom, which follows with her response by saying she's after his resources, including Dark Energon. Megacon laughed, and declares that no one is to take them away from him lest they can defeat him in combat. While Starscream tried to scold Megacon, Scorponok stops him while allowing the Emperor to explain a bit about his Cybertronian origins. The Mortal Brothers tournament was forged by the Elder Hands in an attempt to keep Megacon from merging realms easily. He also went on to say that he made Cybertron a stronger world than under Zetacon, and anyone following him were slaughtered. This led to a fight between Megacon and Misilleeka. Both of their sides fought each other furiously. Despite this, the Decepticons were able to outperform the Misilleekan warriors, hence their weakened state from earlier from just Starscream and Scorponok. Misilleeka was desperate to survive, despite Megacon's mockery of it. Misilleeka and Starscream clashed with each other by agreeing with each other, only to lead to calling the Seeker's problems with Megacon as daddy issues. The Decepticon Seeker slashed the lieutenant down and beats him. In the end of the fight, Megacon and his troops win the fight. The Emperor was preparing to finish them all, but they escaped via Zoldak's portal device from below and swallows them before the Decepticon leader could smash them with his hammer. It would only be until Offen Baron when Megacon got to cross paths with Misilleeka again, several years later. 2,500 years later, Misilleeka sits on her throne with Diatra and Zolkar standing next to her. She complimented them in their best efforts to fend off against Megacon's warriors despite their damaged state. She receives word from a seraph that a mysterious being opened a portal outside of the palace and suggests they should check it out. Misilleeka leaves the realm to Diatra while she investigates the portal outside. Flying outside of her palace, Misilleeka rushes down to the crystal fields and sees reptilian creatures prowling all over them. They fought the Nexus Zorna in battle and Misilleeka joins the fray. The Zyglak invade the realm and try to destroy the queen, but failed. Misilleeka sprints through the portal and finds herself in an island on the planet Spherus Magna. On it is a giant robot lying down, lifeless. She enters the robot where its gears, wires, and plates rusted. This gives a hint that the robot was Makuta Pterodax taking it over until Madanui, using a less powerful robot on Bara Magna, stopped him by dropping a moon on his head, rendering him dead. A high-pitched voice calls out to Misilleeka's question of what the machine was and turned to see the creature. He was Vizon. He tried to reason with Misilleeka, or is he? And eventually introducing himself as Vizok's true half, the scrawny yet intelligent Vizon. He recounts his experience from the Island of Doom storyline and even mentioned how he tricked the Zyglak into fighting the Great Beings. Obviously, that's because it's what led him to getting into trouble. Misilleeka demanded Vizon to send her back to Nexus Netherworld. As soon as the portal opened, Misilleeka kicked Vizon and went in as it swallowed her. This left Vizon upset by this. She finds herself back home with Zolkar and the warriors defeating the Zyglak. 1,000 years have passed, and Misilleeka sat in her throne room. She commented on how something is off. Beside her is Diatra and Zolkar. Both of them were curious of her comment. She was still wondering if the princess herself is keeping more secrets. Misilleeka asked if genies are capable of granting wishes, and Diatra answered yes. The next, if all of them were shackled to lamps, and answered no. Only those who willingly got themselves into them, either knowing them or vice versa. They proceed to a laboratory and meet Professor Zoldak. Misilleeka is desperate to know more about genies, and demands they go to the genie realm. He mentioned that it's a spiritual realm, where any form of science is defied, but she recalled going into the genie realm in episode 3's 3rd chapter. They discussed it further, thinking that the genie realm was destroyed, but it was later stated that it wasn't. While Glordax benefited the realm, she isn't the only one. Others had to be in control. Zoldak pointed out that Jinn are more efficient in power if their freedom is taken away and become prisoners to their vessels. Misilleeka wishes Diatra could open the portal to the genie realm, and does so. It opened inside a machine and proceeded onward. Silver mist, bright pink clouds, and magenta sky above. Something slightly different from before, but still the same realm. As it proceeded into the Holy Realm, a swirling tornado approaches them with turquoise flames in it. It morphs into a figure, 2 arms with chromed gauntlets and blue gems scattered all over, while clothes covering her breasts and thighs, hair flowing like a dark river, and bright yellow eyes like stars. The genie demands who they are to enter the genie realm. Misilleeka demanded who she is first, and responded with the name Scheherazade. Her duty is to watch over the genie realm. Instead of trying to start another war with the genies, Misilleeka wanted to know about their abilities in magic and it could help Nexus Netherworld. However, the genie denied her request and said Diatra is on her side. Diatra retaliates by clicking her sandals and morphed into a misty tail. She declares that she's a pure-blooded genie daughter of 2 genies. To further her answer, Diatra demanded where her mother Zyterex is. This rekindled the giant genie's memories, and mentioned she was with them long ago. Diatra nodded and insisted they help Misilleeka. Scheherazade asked what they wanted, and replied that they're in need of knowing wish granting. The giant genie was reluctant at first, but said yes. Misilleeka and her troops were gently getting their offenses out in preparation if the genies retaliate. Shantae said that the genies must interpret a wish as they see fit. The jinn are creatures made by Alakram, the master of them and elder hands. He gave portions of his powers to the jinn, which resulted to his weakened state, as seen in Misilleeka Season 2 and Often Baron. Now this was during the time creating the universe and the elder hands were built. It would seem he passed on his powers to genies as a means to preserve his influence. Deatra kept her promise by leaving the genie realm after Misilleeka got what she wanted. 4,325 years have gone by, and a mysterious man makes his way into Nexus Netherworld. Goldion, the Great Demon Fist, infiltrates Misilleeka's fortress in hopes of stopping her for good. He let himself get carried by the Nexus Zornai while holding onto a crystal shard. Taking caution, Goldion watched and waited for the right moment to enter the fortress, as security was checking on the Zornok. He eventually takes the chance and heads towards the facility without hesitation. The generals tried to stop him, but managed to enter through the fortress. He raced across the hallways to find the queen inside and fight her. Stopping at a hallway center, Misilleeka makes her moves and swiftly takes down the demon fist with ease. She scoffs at Goldion as she proceeded to attack him, butt-heading him, and beating each other. Coming to his defeat, spears of Seraphim soldiers aimed at Goldion. Keeping him in place, Misilleeka places a spell on the warrior with a dip of the potion onto his head. A small blue shard grew in it, rendering him subservient to Misilleeka. And so, the demon fist becomes desperately in love with her afterwards. 500 years later, Misilleeka is seen flying across the sky of flowerful Netherworld, with both Lise and Void Dark as children, a mother to one daughter and son. The two kids cheered as she carried them through and landed safely upon the fields. She is reminded by Lise that Goldion, her father, is still working and plans to check on him. She initiates a portal to return to Nexus Netherworld. Upon arrival, Misilleeka and her children witness a pack of Zornai attempting to lift a massive crystal shard. Zolkar informs this to her and working to get the heavy shard by using wraps to tie around. She urges the soldiers to make sure it doesn't fall when bringing them to Flowerful Netherworld for her expansion. However, tornado winds from Flowerful's portal intertwined with the workload. A beam of lightning from Nexus struck the giant shard, shaking the entire group and smacking its end against Goldion's shard on his head, breaking the spell Misilleeka placed on him prior to this event. Waking up from his subservience, Misilleeka tried getting Deatra to take her children away, but the demon fist fought the Empress with all of his strength. Misilleeka eventually bests his might and prepares to kill him. Suddenly, Lise intervenes and begs her not to kill him. Void argues with his sister and insisted their mother does the deed. The children argued until she couldn't carry it. Hesitant to kill him now, Goldion gets up and takes the children to Flowerful Netherworld. Void cried to his mother to save him, but couldn't without resulting to bloodshed, especially in front of the kids. While the incident was taking place, Misilleeka was upset that Goldion took Void Dark and Lizarita immediately and couldn't get them back. 1,682 years went by, taking place during the flashbacks of Disgaea 5. Void Dark is at his throne with Margarita and Demon General Bloodus by his side, at his fortress where the Lost reside. Void Dark, at his post-adolescence, mentions Kilia's whereabouts, saying that he's out for revenge for the late Lise. He even said he's doing what Misilleeka could have done years ago when he was a child. Margarita grew curious at Void's dialogue and asked him about it. He admitted that Nexus Netherworld was something that Misilleeka had while Goldion didn't, and wishes he could find it one day. As both Void and Margarita talked, a gush of wind rushes through them. They got up and were aware of the mysterious figure. That figure was revealed to be Misilleeka. Shocked, Void Dark was trembling. Misilleeka opened herself up to him as a mother welcoming her son with a hug. He asked why she left him, only to be corrected that she would never leave him. He immediately ran into her and hugged. She eased his tears shortly afterward. In this scene, Void Dark had hoped to revive his sister Lise. Misilleeka becomes stern about this and asks why that is. She eventually agreed, but asked about transferring his essence. She quickly corrected it by saying he needs to kill Kilia before her sister could be revived. This gives Void Dark some hope to save his sister and rid himself of Kilia. He commanded Bloodus to ready the lost armies and Margarita to Toto Bunny. and keeping its rulers under her control. 4,893 years later, in a dark forest, a young girl with a pup runs for her life as a pack of mystic beasts, wolf-like creatures with horns as seen in Disgaea 2. The little girl is Etna. She and her pup named Scorlia were surrounded by the wolves whose choice was to face a sudden death. This was halted by a figure who landed in between opposing sides with crushing one wolf that was nearing young Etna. Misilleeka growled as she faces the mystic beast and fought a fierce battle. Two mystic beasts charged towards Misilleeka and fought. The wolf she crushed limped away and hid in the bushes, setting up an ambush. The two struck down as the injured one prepares to snatch Misilleeka's face until it was stopped by Etna and pulled it out of the way. She gets the spear and kills the one with it by shooting it against a tree. She pulled its jaws apart and proceeded to do the same to the last injured one. As Misilleeka left, Etna and Scorlia followed her through the dark forest. Waiting for the right moment, the little girl quietly approaches her and knelt next to her sitting. She was terrified by Misilleeka's intimidating appearance and looked away as she was still kneeling. The queen looked down at her and eventually locked eyes. She commented about Etna having her daughter's eyes, though she could mistake it. Once again, Misilleeka may have mistaken Etna's wings and tails to come from her daughter, in which it could come from her grandparents or even great-grandparents. Whether this was a tactic to mentally twist her reality or Misilleeka may have forgotten a part of her convoluted family tree is unclear. What's clear is that Misilleeka takes intrigue of Etna and spent time with her. She took her and Scorlia on a flight across the netherworld. As they flew, they come across a castle. Two dragon guards stood next to the gate and demanded what her business was. Misilleeka replied by saying Krichevskoy is expecting her, and if they refuse, they'll perish by her hands. This led to a heated argument, which was quickly stopped by King Krichevskoy. He declared he was expecting her. You would have thought he was cheating on his wife. However, it was a medical order. It turns out that the young Laharl was falling ill, a very powerful sickness which cannot be easily cured. She declared that Professor Zoldak prepared the best materials necessary to cure Laharl decisively. However, as she fed the boy his medicine, the condition worsened. His skin boiled and howled to scream across the castle. Misilleeka grew worried for Laharl's condition. She tried to find a way to stop this. This resulted to Krichevskoy's wife, Gwen, suggesting she should sacrifice her life to save her son. The king tried to rationalize with Gwen, but all fell on deaf ears. She takes a potion from her coat and prepares a pure white energy to combat a dark serpentine entity coming from Laharl's worsened illness. The pure energy destroyed the illness and left Gwen's body lifeless. Krichevskoy was devastated by his wife's sacrifice and grieved over her. Misilleeka felt bad about the situation that wasn't easy to resolve and decides to leave Etna to the king. She asks the little demon girl to help Krichevskoy in any way she can. The scene ends with Etna staying with King Krichevskoy, and Misilleeka leaves the castle. 475 years have passed, and it was on September 30th, 1475 AD, just over a year after Kuika was canonically born. In Nexus Netherworld, where Misilleeka's reign had remained strong for several years, but this day was different. Three hooded figures traveled, and it's revealed that they are Sakrak's last remaining Seraph loyalists who seek to kill Misilleeka. Those being Lieutenant Karva, Private Julk, and Colonel Hunic. They argued over their plot as to how they will assassinate Misilleeka, cultivating to an end where they decided on doing the deed for the late Sakrak. Karva takes out a device that makes a hologram of anyone, including deceased people. This would mean that they would make it look like Sakrak was revived fully, and so they can do the deed efficiently. Later on, the Sakrak survivors make their way into a temple up west where Misilleeka's palace is, and make their way inside. Once in, they need to set up the trap to fool Misilleeka into thinking Sakrak has returned from the dead, cut her wings off, and push one of the church's pillars to crush her. But as soon as the trap was set, Misilleeka and Zolkar entered. The survivors quickly hid behind the pillars with the hologram already set, and a realistic image of Sakrak appeared right before the queen entered. Misilleeka scoffed and proceeded to attack the fake Sakrak. But as soon as she did, no blood was shed from the hologram. This time, it's hers. Karva slices her wings off and demands both Hunic and Julk to push the pillar to crush Misilleeka as she's weakened after losing her wing. In retaliation, Zalkar stabs Karva through the chest with his sword and tosses him out, but the other survivors were quick to act and killed Misilleeka with the pillar smashing her. Devastated, Zalkar knelt down with Hunik and Julk fleeing. Moments after, Diatra and Jigra entered and were shocked by Misilleeka's murder. All were in tears and horror of their leader's death. A few days have passed. A box was opened. It has Misilleeka's ashes, and her minions gathered to honor it, with Diatra kissing the box's front view, mourning her loss. The priest of the ceremony makes his monologue regarding Misilleeka's passing, and pointed out a new leader to fill in her place. He hands a piece of paper to Diatra, curious of what it was. She wasted no time to read it in Misilleekan language, which can be translated in English on my end. Dear Diatra, by the year 5000 BC, after our attack against Godzilla, I have written this message in case if anything happened to me. There have been moments in my lifetime where I could easily have died had I not taken careful steps. If one of these moments happens to be now, you'll now know why. Should any circumstances come to take my life by any means, I am passing the rule over Nexus Netherworld to you, Diatra. Your determination, passion, and loyalty to my cause has put you at the utmost trust amongst all who serve me. The moment we became allies, you are the calm in every storm I encounter, the shepherd to watch over the herds of Nexus Netherworld, aside Zalkar and many others. Overlord Diatra, you are now Nexus Netherworld's Empress. Go forth and continue my legacy. Let no foe bring us down. From your friend, Misilleeka. This left Diatra in tears by the message. As everyone inside the ceremony watched her friends kneeling, she had no idea how to express her reaction at first. But taking a moment to remember the message, Diatra wiped her tears off, and swore to herself she'd carry on her friend's legacy. Diatra commanded all of her allies to rise and assumes control of Nexus Netherworld to honor Misilleeka's decision. She vows to keep Nexus Netherworld as powerful as it has been since they took over. Now that the Tales of Misilleeka summaries are done, I can proceed to the Zenectic novel series. Considering that 2017 was a bit of a special year for my works, it's good to discuss them with each novel having their own video. Thanks for watching, feel free to subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Over and out.